Social, emotional learning, it's the new wave, where culturally responsive meets innovation.
Hey, Resilient ones. My name is Kristen Hopkins, founder of the Dangers of the Mind Education Fund and creator of Black SEL. I'm a social and emotional expert, curriculum developer, and social entrepreneur who believes in the holistic development of Black youth and adults through culturally responsive and affirming resources. Welcome to the Black SEL podcast, formerly known as Dangers of the Mind. Welcome to Black SEL, Blackity Black, Blackity Black, the social and emotional hub for Black people. So welcome to another Black SEL podcast episode. We are so excited that you have joined us. And here at Black SEL, we open up a safe space for Black people to be vulnerable, share their experiences and expertise, all while highlighting key social and emotional skills. Our goal is to make SEL sustainable, relatable, and tangible in the Black community. So today's guest is no other than my friend, my sister from another mister, Miss the Jessica Couch. So listen, Jessica is in the building. And before I get in, because we could go in, okay? But before I go in, I need to go in on the facts of Jessica. And not just why she's my friend, but I like to keep a lot of real ones around me, but a lot of real ones that are doing real impactful work. Okay. Just not real ones, but you gotta be doing something impactful. And Jessica, Miss Madam, is the partner strategist. Okay, period. The partner strategist, leading retail technology consultant, fits in, is I'm saying it right, sizing, tech expert, entrepreneur advisor, writer, and speaker. Woo, yes, ma'am. Okay. Jessica is a graduate of North Carolina State College, University College of Textiles. Okay. Where she is currently a member of the Dean's Young Alumni Leadership Council. She received her master's, so she don't got just a bachelor's, y'all. She received her master's in digital innovation and fit from Cornell University. Let me just say that one more time, because that is like a rare, you don't hear that in a lot of Black women. So she received her master's in digital innovation and fit from Cornell University, under the guidance of Professor Susan P. Ashdown. She is a board member of MITS Kinetics, a social group supporting tech funding for people of color. She is a professor for Misa Hilton's Fashion Academy and has taught fashion tech classes at Parsons and Cornell University. She also co-founded Women of Color Worldwide. Now, I ain't done, okay? She is the founder of Luxor Finch Consulting, a boutique consulting agency focused on matching people to product, matching people to product through technology integration. We're going to get into this because I'm just as well as the co-founder of Fayetteville Road Agency. Fayetteville Road is a turnkey boutique agency that leverages retail technology to build custom solutions, match people to products, and create innovative experiences for the newly inclusive marketplace. And since the completion of her master's, she has worked with and advised numerous companies, brands, and retails in the retail technology space. I didn't even know this was a thing, but until I met Jess, okay? Enlighten me. So enlighten yourself, because this is a thing. Notable clients include Amazon. All right. I told you this is the Black woman that's doing things. Amazon, Nordstrom's, and Equinix. Am I saying that? And Equinix. She has been featured in WWD, BOF, Home Magazine, Afro Tech, y'all, Voyage LA, Forbes, and other publications. Okay. In early 2021, Jessica launched FitTechDirectory.com, the world's first directory for fit-based solutions available for retailers and brands. Y'all give it up for my girl, my friend, Jessica Couch. Welcome to Black SEL.
Blackity black, blackity black.
Come on, girl. Listen, welcome to Black SEL. We are going to get real and raw today, transparent, and just drop some gems. I am so excited to tap into your wisdom and expertise, but also just highlight some key social emotional skills. So,
Absolutely.
now that you have learned a little bit about Jessica, we're going to go into like just talking about creativity and tech and fashion and how all these things come together. So, Jess, tell me, like, well, first of all, tell me how you feeling, because I see you high up above the clouds. You over here going high. You know what I'm saying?
So low, baby, where do we go?
You go high.
Right. This is our limit. So I
We
just had
love
to
see it.
and as a representation. I'm just happy to be here. First of all, I'm honored to be talking with you because you are the queen. I love this subject matter. You taught me so much about this. I feel like I'm trying to champion it everywhere I go because it's super important. So let's get into it. What you want to know, boo?
So listen, I want to know first and foremost, why are creative careers so important to the Black community? Because listen, first of all, let's be clear that every TikTok challenge, every viral moment, majority of these are Black creatives on the back end of this digital world, right?
Absolutely.
So why are creatives, because I say we, because Beasley was on here and told me that I'm a creative and I believe I'm a creative and I walk in the creative light, right?
Yeah.
Why are creative careers so vital and important to the Black community?
Absolutely. So I'm sure if you're a Black person, you've heard like, oh, you're so creative. You're just oh, that's so creative. And when we look at Black people, we're leading in various categories, whether it's entertainment, whether it's sports, whether it's fashion, whether it's beauty. We are actually not only leading the trends, but most of the times we're the top consumers. It's super important for us to not be commoditized. And I think when you are a creative, when you are an artist, when you think a certain way, you absolutely have to match those skills with skills that allow you to own what you're creating, allows you to understand intellectual property, allows you to understand how do you take creativity, how do you take influence, and how do you capitalize off of it in a way where you can create a career from it. And I do know that a lot of people of color, they have backgrounds that may be Caribbean, you might be African. All Black people are not the same. And sometimes it's frowned upon when you say that you want to go into a creative career. Now, oftentimes it's frowned upon because it's not the traditional way of doing things. And a lot of people can't connect that you can make 6 figures, you can make 7 figures, you can own your own business, and that you can be successful if you're not a doctor or a lawyer. However, you have to be extremely savvy to kind of think on both sides. So when they say that, you're a creative, they're associating that you think on one side of your brain, that you're all about the art side, you're all about the flow, but you have to have that logical part. You have to be able to have accountability. You need these skills so that you can transfer an art, a talent, a creative skill into something that's long-term and generates revenue and wealth for you eventually. And I do think that Black people have something called the halo effect. It's that when we introduce a product, a trend, or a cultural phenomenon, everyone around us comes and adopts it. And what people do is not only are they adopting it, they're commoditizing it, they're making money off of it. And we are left saying like, hey, that was our trend, or hey, we did it first. But we have to move beyond being the person that does it first or just having the clout for it. We have to know how to take ownership. An example of this is sneaker culture. Sneaker culture is inherently Black. It is one of the most Black things ever. Sneakers in Black society are a part of conspicuous consumption. They are indicators of status, wealth, all of these things. It's really our thing. And what we saw over the last few years, you've had companies like StockX and GOAT raise millions of dollars to come into an industry and a culture that we've kind of promote it and that exists because of us, and they commoditized it completely. And how many people that were Black got a piece of that? How many got some equity for? How many said, you know what, I was on the team that was able to formulate that? This is the disconnect between being a creative and then having a career and understand the importance of tech. And so much of my career has been in that intersection of creativity and technology. And now I do want to open that up to other people of color, especially Black people, so that they understand what their opportunities are.
Wow. That's so good. And I never looked at it as like, I never looked at it as us like actually wearing what we wear is making someone else money, because it is, right? Like that you buy, and you buy all the brands and the Black people are the masses, but then our trends, our new things are, are still like, people are like, oh, check, because we looked the other day, and I think that we saw a brand that was like literally built their whole brand off like a history of like art, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in Africa. And we were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, like, because, but we didn't know the history of it. And so we have to be so careful in our Black community to make sure that we guard what's
Mm-hmm.
ours, and that you said, modify it, make sure that we are making money off of it, and that we are also leveraging it,
Absolutely.
and looking at ourselves as a creative, because a lot of Black people, I don't think we look at ourselves as a creative, or we don't name it that. And
exactly.
have opportunities, So tell me, how does tech and creative careers intersect?
Yes, excellent question. So I view technology as a way to solve problems, right? So sometimes people think of technology, they think of AI, yes. They think of machine learning, cool. They think of robots, yeah, sure. But sometimes technology is just the best way possible to solve a problem. And you have to think that Black people, our creativity also allows us to solve problems. Your mother was creative when she used, the bags that she got from the grocery store on her hair in the home,
Yes.
different ways. And you said that, you mentioned that in your poem. That type of creativity is innovation in itself. However, we often discount our ability to be innovative because we're thinking, oh, well, I'm not an engineer, or I'm not a computer scientist. Tech doesn't require you to be a computer scientist, to code, or be an engineer. Now, it would be great for you to consider that, but what it is asking you to do is help to solve a problem in a way that is innovative and new, identify a gap and fill that in. It is important that we do that because, one, the jobs are going to shift towards tech-based jobs in the future. So even if you don't know how to code, you want to make sure that you can talk to a coder to produce what it is that you want. If you're not an engineer, you need to understand what an engineer does, so that if you're all working on a project together, you can utilize their skills alongside of yours. So the first thing is, don't get it confused that technology has to be some type of thing that's out of reach for you, or maybe you feel like, well, I didn't go to school for that. If you do have the chance to go to school and pick what you're going to do, absolutely learn what the future is, because tech is going to integrate every single industry that we have. It's integrating fashion, it's integrating beauty, it's integrating music. I think that, for instance, and I'll give some examples, musicians are really incredible, right? Because they have an ear for sound, they have an ear for cadence, they understand music and all these things. But when tech comes in and they're bringing in these algorithms and they're bringing in AI, someone has to train them. And it's super important that for everything that AI touches, we're going to have to train it so that it's not biased against people of color. And in order to train it, you have to be in a position. Right now, AI reflects its creators. So it's biased towards men, white men. It doesn't always recognize Black people, and it doesn't have us in it. But if we are to be a part of the future, we have to be a part of the technology that's integrating our industries, and we have to think creatively about it, and we have to own those things in a way that's going to make a difference.
So I love this. I mean, I'm just like hearing so much social and emotional learning, right? And so as a professional and expert in this field, there are several things that I believe that people have to master from an SEL standpoint in order to reach this type of success or obtain it, in a lane of it, right? And so you mentioned some things that were so important. And one of them is just getting into a place to leverage what you know, right? But in order to do that, we have to be in a place of determination. We have to be in a place of discipline. We have to be in a place of self-motivation. We have to also understand how to manage our time, because what happens is we could be so distracted by the brands that we wear and like who's wearing what and who's influencing us. We also got to understand as Black people that our style is our style. Let's get rid of this comparison syndrome of being like, so-and-so rock this, so I got to rock this. Like, your style is your style, and you can actually monetize your style. So instead of and that has to be some type of motivation, like it has to be something, because I'll tell you this, when I was growing up, one of the things that I learned to be very important to me is my mama used to say this all the time: Like, first of all, when you got home, you take off your school clothes and you put on, you know what I'm saying? And then also it's like, you better not go out this house looking crazy, right?
Exactly.
So I had to always know like how to represent myself. But then also I learned as a Black woman that when you dress good, you feel good, right?
Absolutely.
And you got to take pride in that. But that also is a huge part of, being self-aware, being confident in your abilities, being confident how you look to people, how you feel and show up in spaces because of how you look, And I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day about that with this whole like natural movement that I have going on. I'm like, I feel liberated. I feel great. I'll be going through this up and down. However, this time I really saw it differently because there was a unique brand of why I'm doing this, but it also added to the brand of an activist and all the other reasons of what I'm studying, and so I think that when we talk about the world of fashion tech and we talk about creatives and how you can be a creative, and we talk about fashion and how all these things intersect, we have to continually push to people that you cannot do this if you do not know yourself.
And let's talk about that because so what's happening in fashion right now that I think all creatives need to pay attention to is social commerce. Social commerce means that before you were kind of inspired to purchase based on ads that you saw. Maybe you saw a billboard, maybe you saw it on a celebrity or whatever, but we know influencer marketing is now shifting to micro and nano influencers. Social commerce means that there is commerce that is happening off of social platforms. So even if you said, I want to be a designer, I want to have a store. If you're trying to go the traditional route of having a store and you think that, maybe doing pop-up shops and buying a billboard is going to be great, you're behind. Social commerce means that you have to invest your time and money into social media, and not in a way where we're just scrolling and we're consuming, but you're putting your products out there. People they're buying things off of TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram influences, as well as Be Real and YouTube. They're not buying things that they're seeing in magazines. They're not buying things that they're driving by on billboards. And so even self-awareness should also allow you to be aware of the changing landscapes around you and your position in it. Because just even with innovation in tech, you cannot stay the same. You must grow and evolve depending on your environment. And so if you're looking to be in fashion, self-awareness should also drive you to be disciplined. What a lot of people think is you want to be an entrepreneur, and that's great. And a lot of it is hustling, but a lot of it is doing the same things in a regimented way that will help you to be successful. You have to have a timeline of how much entertainment you're looking at. You have to wake up and read every day. You have to get your knowledge from somewhere. And there's so many ways to do that. Like, do you have Google alerts? Are you making alerts on your phone of things that are important to you as a business owner so that you can get the freshest information? Or are you just scrolling all day? Because it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. No.
So
and it's not going to be helpful to you as you grow. And like you said, something that was really important about waking up and making sure you're reading the latest articles in your field. A lot of times, in the Black community, and I'm just going to be honest, some of us do the work and some of us want to look like the work, like that. We want to look well, but it takes us to really actually do the work and stay up to the trends. And that's a hard part of discipline. That's a hard self-management skill. And then you talked about the time that you have to put in it, creating the timeline. It's time management. How are you managing your time with this? How are you managing your time on social media? Is it benefiting you? Or are you just scrolling, like you said, right? And we got to identify those distractions and those things that say, this field is forever changing, it's forever growing, and Black people, we are making this field, so we need a piece of pie.
And I mean, I don't know if people have read the latest article about Kirby from Pyre Moss, but the failure of what happened with him that has been ousted lately is just an indication of one, not being self-aware, and then not establishing business practices that were necessary to take your brand. And it's like, as a Black artist or creative, period, while we just talked about this, you can be as creative as you want, but if you're going to talk about doing business and being an entrepreneur, you have to understand business principles. If someone's not teaching them to you, you have to go out there and get them. If you want a fashion line, you have to understand production, supply chain, fabrication, costing, all of these things. And what I think we do is we get so caught up in that one part that's creativity. Well, I'm an artist. Well, I know my stuff is great, but creativity in a silo will not produce a business by itself. You have to have things in place. And that's not just beyond self-awareness, accountability. You got to be accountable to your team. You don't have time to have an ego. If you take time and read the article, many people attested to the fact that Kirby's ego was so outlandish that he wasn't taking advice from people. He was not listening. And this is someone who is at the top of his company. Yeah. And what you're risking when you can't be accountable to other people, yeah, and you don't know how to take advice is that it doesn't matter how high up you are, you're eventually going to fall. Yeah. And that's just it. Does not matter. If you're the type of person that can't grow from people speaking to you and you can't understand accountability in a way that will bring you success, then you're not going to be successful. It's not a game.
No, you said something that's so important because we often think that relationship skills is common sense, right? But it really is a skill to develop a healthy and relationship that can be maintained. And one of the things is you talk about, not taking constructive criticism and all those things. One of them is also negotiating conflict constructively. If we do not know how to speak up for ourselves in a field and voice our opinions, we're not going to make it to the top, because what we really need to understand is if I have an issue with you and you have an issue with me, we need to talk about it, right? We need to understand in a constructive way and negotiate, to get to a common resolution.
That's not familiar for us. That's not. And the problem is, this is very interesting because other industries take Black culture and they capitalize off the great things and they make money off of it. We take Black culture and we hold on to the negative things and we self-identify with it. So this idea, like I've heard people saying, I don't let nobody talk to me. She tried to come to me and talk something. I was ready because, I don't care. I'm confrontational. You being confrontational is not something that's going to bring you success. And no one else is going to tell you that. They're going to let you stay black and loud, and that's fine. But in reality, proper communication, candor, being able to listen, being able to resolve conflict is probably one of the key skills you're going to have as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as an adult. It's a lot of adults that can't do that.
Absolutely.
It's and we're probably not, if it doesn't happen in your family, you're not encountering it, right? So you probably think it's normal to be toxic. You think it's normal to argue. You think it's normal to have all these negative responses. But if you do that in a business meeting, in a boardroom, they're not going to stop and correct you. They're going to X you out of it and they're going to cut your supply off. No one's going to hold your hand through that. So if you don't develop these skills, no one's going to feel bad for you either if you shouldn't be successful as a result of you not knowing what the standard is for communicating.
Yeah. And I think about some statistics in education right now. There were 7% according to Forbes, there were 7% of teachers who were equipped to teach social emotional learning in the year of 2020. 7%. So that means 93% of teachers were not equipped to teach these skills to a child. But if we translate that to the fashion industry, right? We think about, like, you could know your fashion, you could know everything about tech, you could know all these things, but if you are not practicing and modeling, the skills of relationship skills of responsible,
it's worthless. It's useless.
It's useless, and you're never going to be as successful as you would like to be. And this is why we want to really stop and highlight how, even though you may have not known what the name was, you were still mastering, right? You were still practicing self-management skills. You were still disciplined to build all these things for yourself on that we just highlighted in your bio, right? Absolutely. You had time management. You knew when to block off time to play, and you knew when to block off time to say, I can't make that. How many times just as an entrepreneur have we said, hey, sis, I'm not going to be able to make it today. I'm still wrapping up work.
Because prioritizing is a key. Prioritizing is going to make the difference between you and everybody else in your success. And I do think it was not easy for me to self-manage because I was not taught that in my home. My parents were entrepreneurs, and lucky for me, my father was very structured. My mother was very creative, even though she's a lawyer. So they moved very differently. But what I spent my time doing in my 20s selfishly was working on me. And this education doesn't come by way of school. It doesn't come by way of you just existing. I had to read books over and over. I had to first identify within myself, hey, my attention gets easily removed. How do I mitigate that so that I can put myself on a timer and actually be progressive? 2, I get nervous when it's time for me to pick up the phone and call somebody. What's going on here? A lot of people can self-identify a problem and they'll say, that's just how I am. For me, if I wanted to be great, I had to identify my own gaps, my own issues, and then remediate them consistently in a way that works for me. So my way of self-management may be different from everybody else, but knowing thyself, which is in the Bible, is a very important thing that we don't do. Everyone's not going to tell you that, hey, sweetheart, you talk too loud, it's too hard. We're not for that. Everyone's not going to tell you that this is a good idea, but it doesn't make sense how you want to do the business. No one's going to tell you, hey, I tried to give you some advice, but you got weird. Most people are going to count you out immediately because it's a turn off. So you'll never make it to where you could be the greatest designer in the world. You don't know how to work with teams and take advice, and you don't know how to get better and be accountable. It doesn't matter. You won't make it.
You know, you're so right. I'm just thinking about like so many of the Black community that's sitting, and I pray that the right people are listening to this, because when I just think about like how many people spend all they have on getting dressed and looking the flyest.
Oh, I'm glad you talked about this.
Right.
I'm glad we have this. That's called conspicuous consumption, right? It's a part of our culture where we want to invest money in order for ourselves to be presented a certain way so that we can be accepted into certain groups. And we want to show that, we have, that is a thing.
Again?
Conspicuous consumption.
Conspicuous.
We're not the only ones doing it, but we're the ones that's probably allocating most of our dollars towards the material part of conspicuous consumption versus other people do it with like buying homes in certain neighborhoods or buying certain vehicles. We're very much on like, I'm gonna wear all my jewelry so people know I got money, even though where I live, I don't own it. I'm gonna wear the fly sneakers so people never know I'm broke, even though I don't have any real assets to my name. That's what we do. But I'm not gonna knock it, because let me tell you what I'm building. I've been in fashion for a long time, and I've been studying the tech side. I'm studying influence, and I've decided to create a platform that takes the behaviors of our people and rewards them for it. So what it does is it allows anybody at any time to be an influencer. So if you was the flyest person in your school and, you know, you spent your mama's last dollars to get these Jordans, you working hard to get them, you know, it might have cost you all of the check that you had working wherever it was. I know that feeling, and I'm not going to tell you to stop, but I'm going to help you monetize it. So if you're that person, you'll be able to post, kind of tag your items. And when people ask you, where'd you get that? Instead of you feeling like, I ain't gonna tell nobody where my fly is, you let them know, here's my link. And when they purchase from you, you get paid. Now, the reason why I wanted to set this up is because what I've learned about technology is that the best technology doesn't change behavior, because that's not what we're trying to do. I don't want to change your behavior. The best technology takes existing behaviors and puts it on a platform so that it can be done more effectively or efficiently. So for me, when I was thinking about it, specifically, think about Kanye West and his dealings with Adidas and the Yeezy brand and all that. They capitalized so much off of the culture that he built and who he was. But him not having the proper equity stake in his own influence is a problem. What I want to do is provide people of color with equity in their influence so that you don't have to be on TikTok getting your dances stolen and you never get a dime for that. You can convert immediately one-on-one. If you fly and you like being fly, you deserve to be paid for it. And not only paid for it, you deserve for brands to reach out to you and say, listen, you've moved $100,000 for us. Here's at least 10,000 for you just doing that. Because right now you have no idea. We have no way to track our influence. And and it's funny because I have to go into brands and talk about women of color, people of color, and our influence. You would be surprised at pushback. Well, you're only 13% of the population, but we're spending 9x times our counterparts in beauty, health, and wellness. Well, you're only 13% of our population, but we have the biggest halo effect in fashion, period. Where if we're not mentioning it in our songs, if we're not wearing it, it's not cool. But how are we being rewarded for that? And so part of my time in fashion has really taught me a lot. And what I'm building now, that it'll launch its beta in March, is a way of how do we get people who look like us to have a way to earn income and sustain themselves from their habits that they probably aren't able to change.
Yeah. And, wow, this makes me think of so many things, but one thing I just want to say is thank you, because sometimes we get discouraged with our community and we're like, we got to unlearn so much stuff. We have to unlearn. So like, it's deeply rooted. How are we going to stop people that can't afford these brands, but were raised by their mama and daddy to always purchase something, and they might have the lights off? It might be a real critical situation, but the presentation was always important for us. And we still got to grow through that, though. We still got to learn through that. But being able to find an outlet to get our people paid and circulate some dollars in the Black community is important. And this is also the biggest thing that to me that is important for this too, is because I'm looking at this from a totally different angle. And of course, I'm always looking from an SEL point, but this right here can really allow us to increase our social awareness skills, because a lot of Black people, right, they're very they get very you ain't in my circle, I ain't rocking with you. But now I know I'm about to get paid because you like my stuff. Oh, I'm gonna speak up. Oh, I'm gonna look at your fashion and know that you may like my fashion just because of your style. So now I'm gonna perspective take and speak to you, right, and increase my social awareness and be aware of my surroundings.
Talk about it.
Also empathize with you. If you like, I ain't like this because of this, I'm like literally practicing these skills of social awareness through me also getting paid, right? And
this is why social emotional learning is so important, because it changes it. It's so many ways that we can utilize it in creating new and innovative experiences that allows people to kind of evolve, because you can tell somebody something all day, but sometimes you have to motivate them. And oftentimes money's a great motivator. Clout is a great motivator. Having attention and being noticed is a great motivator for then people to say, you know what, let me be more aware. Let me see how I can make this a business. Let me talk to people that's coming beside me. And that's why tech is important, because again, you don't always want to change the behaviors. You want to facilitate those, identify them first and facilitate them in a way that can create new and better behaviors. But it doesn't have to be that initially. And things can still be cool. Things can still make you money, but if it helps you to be a better person and speak to somebody, share something, and kind of like you said, have all these skills, then we need to do that and invest in these things and promote these things so that we can have success.
So, and with everyone that we bring on the show, we love to highlight the expertise and everything that they have done in their industry, but we also want to bring it down to a very real place too, and a very transparent place. So we want to know, I want to know from you, just about the struggles or the experiences that you have seen as a Black woman in your industry. What are some barriers? What are some obstacles, that you had to, because as Black people, we are resilient. We aren't resilient. We are resilient, right? We overcome these obstacles with key social and emotional skills. We use SEL every day without even intentionally knowing we're using it. So tell us some these struggles or a couple obstacles that you have seen specifically a Black woman in your field.
Well, first of all, as a Black woman in tech, that's an obstacle in itself, because what I found myself doing earlier in my career is there was a need to constantly validate myself. And even my grad school was not because I could bellyache about people aren't going to accept me in tech. I was just as smart as I was before going to Cornell, right? Because you can't go to Cornell and not be smart. It's just that I chose Cornell because I realized as a Black woman in tech, people were going to doubt me and I needed to qualify myself. And I think what's important is you can't let those things stop you and hurt your feelings. That is the reality of it. So you want to equip yourself with the best possible tools in order to step into a room. And when they check you to qualify, check my resume. Now that we got out the way, let's talk. Another thing that I saw is that there's always an assumption that as a person of color, you're not going to be as smart as your counterparts. So knowing that, I don't come into the room asking for pity or, playing smart, playing low. I come in the room talking numbers and let people know off gate. If you're going to talk to me, you better have read what I read. I'm probably smart. And I'm ready to outsmart you on this topic at any time. So let's leave numbers. I don't need empathy. When I'm convincing people that you need to shop and dedicate products for people of color, I'm not saying it because of the incidents that have occurred, although they are significant and important for us to recognize. I'm letting you know that you lose on the bottom line when you don't include us. This ain't a thing about, we need inclusion so that we can kumbaya. You like dollars and cents, you need to make sure you cater to us, or then I know it's a bigger problem.
Absolutely.
Those things have been obstacles. But what I think we must do is we can't cry about these obstacles. We can't bellyache. Knowing and being aware of them will allow us to strategize around it. It is still my number one thing that I come into the room with is the fact that I'm a Black woman. First, you're going to look at me. You're going to doubt me. You're going to be, you're going to have all these thoughts. That works in my favor and I'm prepared for it. I'm not here to cry about it.
Underestimate a Black woman, okay?
Because we top of the top right now. And so within the fashion industry too, that's another niche part of the industry where you are often the only one. You have to be exceptional, and then people want you to conform. I'm not a conformist. I didn't build my career working for myself so that I had to conform to anybody's idea of what success is. And so I think the internal conflict working in fashion is, do I conform or not? And I choose not to. And you have to know that sometimes that allows you into certain rooms. Sometimes you can't go because you don't play by the game. You still have to know what your goals are and go after it. The other thing that might surprise you is that all skin folk ain't skin folk.
Hello.
This whole Black woman camaraderie thing that people push Black girl magic on the outside, it's not always like that. You'd be surprised.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. People still feel like there's limited resources where if I'm doing this thing, you can't do it too. Or we in the same field. It ain't no competition like that. There are that mindset of limited resources, I think, keeps Black people from achieving so often.
And I guess it's a crab in the bucket mindset. Like only one person could make it.
It can only be one. You don't know how many times that I've encountered other Black women that are allies in this or advocates in this space, and they're doing stuff. They won't let you in the room because they're afraid you're going to take something that belongs to them. They don't want you at the table because they feel like, yeah, it's hard. It's terrible. But you know what? Again, people that are good and for you won't always look like you. But when you have the proper SEL skills, you can identify who's who, because you'll recognize it in how they carry themselves, how they manage their time, how they open doors for you, how they're courteous, how they're going to talk to you. And it doesn't always have to be nice. It could be direct. And sometimes it might be off-putting, but you'll know who's for you when you have those skills. You can't get caught up in people just smiling at you, rubbing your back, saying that's fine. That could be a snake. When you don't have the proper skills to identify people who are successful and who are emotionally intelligent, you can get used in this industry.
Absolutely.
People will take your ideas, they will take your style, and they
every day, all day in our industry too.
Yeah, it's just a thing. And so those are some of the obstacles that I've seen. And I think that it's so important to have these social emotional learning skills. And then I'll say the other obstacles outside my industry would be with, just meeting people and even on your dating side. I think like the more emotionally intelligent you become, the harder it is to really identify with the majority. And so like you'll start learning like maybe some of your closest relationships are then shifted as a result. It could be people from your childhood. It could be somebody that you've dated, but the lack of social emotional learning has made groups of people that could be compatible, incompatible, and unable to be successful or to have results or fruit from these relationships. And that has also been something that, is discouraging sometimes, but
it is. And I think it's important to identify that as a listener, and you may be in any type of field, that as a Black person, it is our social responsibility. Keep our field over here for a second, right? But as a Black person, it is our social responsibility. We owe it to our community and ourselves to be aware of these skills and practice these skills so that we're better. And a lot of times in the Black community, if you become better, people start looking at you like, she thinks she's better than somebody. And it's not. I actually did the work, sis. I put in the hours, right? I prayed. I did my thing to make sure.
And you can too.
And you can too. And nobody, like, these skills are free. These skills are here. These skills are available. And, and that's why even with the Black SEL Hub, I created that because I didn't see Black women in this field. I didn't see Black men. And when I say in this field, yes, we've been doing SEL our whole lives. Educators have been doing it. The last thing we're just talking about is about, of course, how crucial these skills are in our Black community, and making sure that as we talk about fashion, as we talk about tech and how these things all integrate, that we need to understand the keys to understanding how, even when Jessica was talking about her new app or new, platform that is coming out, and thinking about the social awareness skills that our Black people can use and still get paid, right? And still get paid for what they wear, but also being able to perspective take with other people, check out their fashion, talk to them, engage with them. And this is also how we build healthy relationships. So I love, what she's creating here. I love the innovation of it. And I want to talk about something that I feel isn't talked about enough. And also I want to highlight, she was telling us about a lot of her struggles as a Black woman in this field. And a lot of this is also, we have to be very guarded and careful, because as Black women, when we are up against a struggle of either a fellow Black woman in the room that's like, feels insecure about our knowledge, we have to do better, sisters. We got to do better. Black people in general, we are on each other's side. We feel the racism when we walk into rooms, so we can't be racist. Like, we can't be in this against each other. We got to be together, in these spaces, and we got to work collaborative. I totally believe in collaboration over competition. Like, it just doesn't work for me. I'm not going to sit here and compete with you. I can't. And you can't compete with me. You don't got my anointing. I don't got your anointing. Okay. To do this, you don't got my favor. I don't got your favor. So you got to know, that you are uniquely made and designed to be at the table and to be in the rooms. And so is this other sister sitting across the room. So one thing that I want to talk about really quickly is, what is the difference between appreciation and appropriation of Black fashion trends? Because we talk about, you gave us some real stuff about how we love the masses. I mean, we are the masses, right? And people are getting paid off of us. But what is the difference about appreciation and appropriation?
That's a really good question, because this is something that brands don't get right. They still seem to be very confused about it. Appreciation for something is like admiration and a thanks that it exists, which acknowledges why it exists. Mm-hmm. It acknowledges the history of it. It acknowledges the origins of it, and it's showing gratitude for it. Appropriation is taking something and trying to make it yours without acknowledging the origins of something. So let's do an example of, I don't know if y'all saw this on social media. This girl on TikTok said that she came up with sticky bangs, which she brushed out her baby hairs and put some gel up there. And she was like, I call these sticky bangs. I just came up with it. That's appropriation. First of all, you didn't come up with it. So pretend
sticky bangs.
And then like you came up with it is appropriation. You didn't do any research. You didn't think that you've been seeing people lay their edges and you came up with sticky bangs. Okay, so that's
the audacity.
The next thing I would say is, like, let's talk about sneaker culture. There's a lot of appropriation of sneaker culture in fashion right now, and they never acknowledge the origins of it. They're never grateful for it. They never contribute to the communities who even made it a thing so that it could be commoditized, right? So all of these designers, before, sneakers were ghetto. They were signs of poverty. People didn't like them. They were urban. Nobody liked sneaker culture. And then all of a sudden, because the Black influence and the halo effect is so big, you see, if you go to different countries, or let's just talk about China and how China consumes luxury products. They have consumed hip hop culture. They became really big buyers of sneakers as a result of the culture that they were interested in, which was ours. And then brands started saying, hey, this big trend is spreading all over the world. Let's just commoditize it ourselves. We're going to make sneakers. It's dope. Street culture, urban wear, all that stuff, all this like street fashion stuff, that comes from us. And when there's no acknowledgement, when there's no atonement, when there's no donations that you see going back to our communities in order to understand, when there's no education around it, where they're doing museums or activations where it's like, oh, we're going to partner with Nike to talk about the history of hip hop and its contributions to fashion, that is appropriation, and it's dangerous. And I do think that this is why people of color must be very aware of what they're trying to buy and where they're spending and what we should do, because you can vote with your dollar. And when we stop making it cool, it won't be cool anymore. Do you remember how short-lived the Gucci protest was a couple of years ago when Gucci did some righteous?
Now, listen, let me tell you, I'm not gonna lie to you. I got a bone to pick with our Black people, and the reason why I do is because we are the quickest ones that will be anti something and then pro it the next day. Like, we don't know how to hold on to our dollar. Like, and the Black dollar is so valuable that I don't think we realize how valuable it is. And like, even with H&M, the whole monkey thing with the little boy, and then everybody like, we boycotting H&M. And then the next week they got 75% off sale, and you got Black people just itching like, oh, wait a minute, down, that's 70% off. And but they know us. They know us. They've studied us. They have studied our patterns.
Our power.
They know our power.
And I'll tell you, Gucci had to atone for it. So they have their Gucci Changemakers program, which is an excellent program where now they're trying to create more educational opportunities to bridge the gap. But we have to demand these things by being self-aware of the power that we have. If I think if Black people understood that we motivate $260 billion of our income to try new things, Black all the time. That's 260 billions of anything that's the newest, the latest, the dopest, we're on it. And that's a quantifiable number that other people are aware of, and we're not.
Wow.
We have $1 billion of spending power. If Black people alone were a nation, we'd have the 15th largest GDP. So these are the numbers that's important. And when you know your numbers, you understand your value, and you'll understand that where I spend my dollar, who I align myself with, what I put on my body is going to be super important. Because I'm going to tell you another part of appropriate. When you saw all these brands that started making the Adidas flip-flops, let's talk about this. That comes from jail culture. So those flip-flops, let's talk about it. It comes from prison culture. Okay. And there's nobody bridging the gap between prisoners and coming, back into society and recidivism or anything like that. But what we saw was the Gucci's, the Louis Vuitton, all of these brands went Balenciaga and made slides because we had made this a part of our culture. We made it popular, but no one ever talked about the origins of that Adidas slide that you get when you come out of prison and, some regular sweatpants and a white tee. But when we saw designer labels coming out with the exact same things that we've been wearing in our community, that we're told is ghetto, that we're told is not attractive, that's not business casual. But now all of a sudden we have a whole market for streetwear that looks just like what you saw growing up when people were wearing it. And this whole sweatsuit and hoodies, everything that was urban and ghetto is now the driving force for this brand.
Yeah. And you just said something that I'm sitting here like, wow, I've been appropriated, like as a designer, because I have a clothing line, right? And I've had self-awareness is the new bag. I've had fearless gear. I've had legacy over likes, and I have all these things. And I remember this was in 2016. I got a call from probably like 7 people. I probably got over 15 DMs with people being like, yo, oh no, I'm sorry, this was like 2018. People being like, yo, you partner with Nike? Yo, you partner with Nike? And I was like, nah, what are you talking about? Nike came out with the Fearless, like with the literally, and when I tell you, it was the same exact fear font with the crossed out. And I mean, it was a limited edition. And I know people that have called me and said, did you partner with Nike? And at that time, and let me tell you what this did to my confidence. Like, and this is something that I think just we gotta get together to create like forums for Black people to really talk about what appropriation looks like and how we need to demand. Because I was so discouraged because I was my lawyer, and I have a lawyer, Trevor. I've worked with him for almost 7 years now. And I said, Trevor, what do I do about this? Right. And he said, well, if you want to go up against him, it's going to take a lot of money. Right. But mind you, I was in the middle of building a educational consultant firm where
and they know that they're going to exhaust you if you try to go against them that way. They absolutely know that.
And so I'm over here like, okay, do I take 10,000 and put against a case to do this? Or do I take this and put it back into my business to grow my capital, or to put in my capital to get more curriculum? So my mind was like, you know what? I don't want to have that long road. However, I did feel like a part of me felt like I had gave up and gave into something and not tried to represent my small Black, fashion brand business. Right. And I think about that often because
that happens a lot, Kristen. Your story is like that happens a lot because they're watching. This is why I want to create my platform, because when they act like that your things don't exist before or that they're not impactful, the platform will provide that data. But 2, they're watching to see what's cool, and they're just appropriate. They're taking and then they're producing it. But the power that we have now with social media and TikTok and videos and getting people behind us, now we're at a place where we can combat that in a way that like we've never had. I had a friend of mine who had a really dope clothing line out of London called Saint Yaboa.
So it was really dope. He comes from Nigerian culture.
Oh my gosh, I think I saw this online. It went viral. Yes. Okay, keep going.
So he's had that clothing line forever. He had super successful. He was getting in on all the rappers in the who's who that really pushes brands. And then when the NFL had a contract to go to London, they sent him a cease and desist because they have a team with the name Saints on it. And so he went back and forth with them. They shut down his company and he had to change his name. There was no care for the artisanship and the craftsmanship that he had developed. The fact that he had an established brand, they knew they were bigger. They shut him down and there was nothing he could do. But recently he repositioned his brand after, feeling the same way you did. He felt discouraged. He couldn't fight it no matter what, because it's the NFL versus you.
It messes up your confidence too. Your creative.
He was very hurt about it. And I remember because he and I strategized, like, how do we get people to know that this happens so they can understand, at least if you don't get your brand back, that these things occurred and it's negative. But what he was able to do lately, he just relaunched with another retailer called Cause, which was great. So he bounced back. And we're going to always have to be able to bounce back. But now there will be more ways for us to avoid these things happening and to fight back and to be able to have say, because your culture is being appropriated, your designs, your looks, your styles, your face, your body, what you're saying, what you're using, and other people are making money. And if we don't do the same, we'll end up constant concerns.
I know we do not have to ask you, how do you advocate for inclusion? Y'all just heard it right here. Like, Jess is literally at the forefront of this and speaking and representing Black people and making spaces for people of color. And I think it's brilliant. I think it's needed. I really do look at you as an advocate and an activist in this space. And I want you to see yourself as such, because you are really needed, not only in the Black community, but for this specific generation of Black people, because knowing the technology, knowing the fashion, understanding the trends, understanding the numbers, to be able to go into rooms and state the facts, not like, oh, I want to give you a vision. No, let me just tell you some numbers. Let me tell you why Black people must be at the table, right? Let me tell you why we have to be at the table. It's not a maybe. It's a need. It's a must, right? And so I thank you for that, and I just thank you for being such a dope Black woman who is continuing to fight for change, continuing to educate, people in this industry, such as myself, because I never felt that I could connect to the fashion industry. I always, had like a clothing line I created in 2016, but it was just a part of a brand.
Damaris, wear that before I met you. Damaris had something on of yours, and I was like, who is this? Because this is, I haven't, and I think it was like a red sweatsuit.
It was a Fearless. Yep.
I love red, and I loved it. And I was like, I've never seen this, because I would have known. And I remember being like, I need this red sweatsuit. First of all, it looks good on my skin. Second of all, it fit her so well. I was like, who?
But yes, that was mine. I have been it's been a passion of mine to just have streetwear, to have book bags and hats and backpacks and all those things. And the lesson I learned from the fear is that I trademarked all my rest of my stuff, because I was like, I'm not about to get got no more, and try me if you want to, that, because I'll go to court next time. I will definitely do that. But I appreciate that, because, sometimes we have these like brands that we conceptualize from like, that's not our main bread and butter. It's just kind of like we want to, these are liberating, like, even Black SEL, the shirt I have on today, it's like I always create something to speak to what we do. And
that's who we are.
That's who we are as a people. And that's that creative side of me. And, I design each one. Like, I'm like, okay, I want to look like this. Like, I still have the say so. And I know that that's a gift of mine. I kind of like push that off. But what I will say is just encouraging people that don't see themselves as a super fashion person, right? You made me realize that I do have somewhat of this gift, and I need to obviously hone in on it, but then also understand how to monetize what I wear and what people wear, like what I promote, And so I really just thank you for your talent, your expertise, for you being different, because I know when you first started out in this field, it wasn't like, oh, tech, like it was like tech, but it was, at Cornell, you probably wasn't like, the rooms wasn't flooded, with people wanting to do this. And like, this is such a different, innovative industry that like, before I met you, I knew no one who did what you did and who does what you do. And I really like, yeah, like when you look back on it now at your age, you're like, just thank you, God, for allowing me to keep going with this field, because you've tapped into something that is at this, like you're like digging and like you're gonna, like, it's a gold mine. It's a gold mine. It's a gold mine for Black people's wealth. Right. I'm prophesying over your life. It's a gold mine for Black people's wealth, and it's a gold mine also for your generation, your family's family, and then just for Black consumers and Black people in general to know their worth. So thank you for instilling confidence in us this episode.
Yeah.
Or, let's like going over some SEL skills, some self-management skills, some responsible decision-making. Thank you for continuing to make responsible decisions in and out of the meeting spaces and the rooms that you are in. Thank you for being socially aware of who is around you and how you are appreciating people, but also how you are perspective taking and saying, because you said something real. You said, fashion doesn't change. It may change our behaviors, but we're not going to change as Black people like all at once. So we ain't going to change. Let's pay us in the meantime of trying to change us, right?
Let's do for what we do well. We don't have to Bill Cosby each other where it's like, wag our finger. Well, we're not going to Bill Cosby. Wag our fingers at our culture without something to help mitigate like some of these issues.
Absolutely. We can't be making no comments about Bill nowadays, but we're just gonna shout him out. We'll keep going. Hey, Bill. But I love you. I appreciate you. So Jessica, thank you so much for being here and participating in this and practicing SEO skills. This is Black SEL.
Blackity black, blackity black.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jess. I appreciate you.